So you want to own a private golf course. 200 acres of manicured fairways bearing your name, a clubhouse full of members who greet you like royalty, maybe your own invitational tournament someday. It's one of the oldest, most visible status purchases in the world, and right now, demand for it has never been higher. Here's the number that should catch your attention. The median initiation fee to join a private club jumped from $29,000 to $50,000 between 2019 and 2022, a 72% increase in 3 years, and more than 80% of clubs raised prices again the following year. Members are paying more than ever to get in the door. And at the exact same time, the two largest owners of private golf clubs in the entire country have spent the last 2 decades being bought, sold, leveraged, and resold by private equity firms, in at least one case by the very same firm, twice. Most members writing that initiation check have no idea where the money actually goes once it lands. By the end of this video, you'll know what it actually costs to build and run a private course, why the margin looks better on paper than it does in practice, what's really driving the arms race in clubhouse spending, and who's quietly been buying and reselling the golf industry's biggest players for 20 years. Owning a private golf course isn't one business, it's 3, all sharing the same 18 holes. Version 1, the member-owned equity club. The members themselves collectively own the real estate, elect a board, and vote on major capital spending. Nobody outside the membership profits from the club's operations, but that also means the members are the ones directly on the hook if the numbers don't work. Version 2, the corporately owned club. A management company or ownership group owns the course outright, and members pay dues and fees for access, more like a customer relationship than an ownership stake. This model has scaled dramatically over the last 2 decades, and it's the version where a private equity firm 3 states away can end up owning a meaningful slice of your local club without a single member ever voting on it. Version 3, the trophy course. A single wealthy individual builds or buys a course largely as a personal legacy asset, sometimes never even opening it to paying members at all. The economics here can be almost irrelevant because the actual return is prestige, not cash flow. Building an 18-hole course from scratch typically costs somewhere between $3 million and $30 million or more, depending on land, terrain, and ambition, and that's before the clubhouse. You'll need somewhere between 120 and 300 acres depending on how dramatic the layout is meant to be. Design and permitting alone typically take 6 to 12 months. Construction runs another 12 to 18 months. Then the turf itself needs 6 to 12 months of grow-in before it can handle real play. All told, 2 to 3 years can pass between breaking ground and welcoming your first paying member, with land payments, staff, and construction loans accruing the entire time. Add architect and environmental consulting fees running anywhere from $20,000 to $500,000. Permits covering everything from wetland impact to water rights, and a clubhouse that, at the high end, can run $1,500 per square foot to build. The course itself is often the smaller line item in the total project budget. Here's where the math gets uncomfortable. The average annual maintenance budget for a private golf course runs over $1 million, and upscale clubs can spend close to $2 million a year just to keep conditions pristine. Labor alone eats 56 to 60% of that maintenance budget before a single bag of fertilizer or gallon of irrigation water is paid for. Well-managed courses can generate $500,000 to $1 million or more in annual profit, and high-end clubs with strong initiation fee pipelines and event revenue can clear $2 million or more. But the payback period on the initial investment runs 10 to 15 years for a private club, nearly double the 7 to 12-year window a well-run public course can hit. You're not buying a business that pays you back quickly. You're buying one that, if everything goes right, starts paying you back around the time your original construction loan would have otherwise been paid off anyway. Ow for the part of this business that quietly erodes margins at even the most successful clubs, and industry insiders have a name for it: the space race. Private club members, by nature, like to show off their clubs to each other, and that competitive instinct translates directly into capital spending. One club consultant described a clubhouse renovation estimate that came in at $1,500 per square foot. Another described a member telling him their club was building an $8 million maintenance facility, essentially a garage for lawn equipment. None of this spending is strictly necessary to keep a golf course operating. It happens because members compare their club to the one down the road, and nobody wants to be the club with the dated locker room. Add rising water costs, especially in the Southwest, where maintenance runs over $15,000 per acre, well above the roughly $11,000 Southeast average, and rising insurance and labor costs on top, and it becomes clear why initiation fees have had to climb so aggressively just to keep the whole operation solvent. The golfer chasing status ends up subsidizing an amenities arms race that has very little to do with the actual game of golf. Here's the part of this business almost no member has ever traced all the way through, and it's a story about the same asset changing hands in a loop. Club Corp, the largest owner of private golf and country clubs in America, was bought by the private equity firm KSL Capital Partners in 2006 for $1.6 billion. KSL ran it through the 2008 financial crisis and grew it steadily until 2017, when it sold Club Corp to Apollo Global Management for $2.2 billion. Apollo rebranded the company as Invited in 2022 and grew it from around 125 owned clubs to more than 200, reportedly exploring a public offering at a valuation of $4.5 billion. And in 2026, KSL Capital Partners, the same firm that sold Club Corp to Apollo 9 years earlier, agreed to buy Invited back for $2.6 billion. The same collection of golf clubs, changing hands between the same two owners, twice over the span of 20 years, each time with a fresh layer of acquisition debt attached. Along the way, reporting on the company's finances describes Apollo shifting club assets into different legal entities as debt came due, a maneuver that typically allows a firm to borrow against transferred assets while leaving existing creditors in a weaker position. None of this shows up on a member's monthly statement. Golf, with roughly 4,300 private clubs in the country and a shrinking handful of companies increasingly deciding how many of them get built. Financed and Operated is following a similar arc, just with a much longer history and a much bigger price tag on the way in. A developer builds a private course using existing rolling terrain instead of extensive earth moving, phases the clubhouse to open with a modest structure and expand only once membership revenue justifies it, and deliberately avoids matching the amenity spending of neighboring clubs. Initiation fees are set to reflect genuine demand rather than chasing a headline number, and the maintenance budget is set by realistic course conditions rather than bragging rights. This course reaches profitability within the industry's faster 7 to 10 year range, and because it never took on debt for a $1,500 a square foot clubhouse it didn't need, it weathers a slow membership year without a crisis. A developer builds a similarly sized course in the same period, but commits early to a showcase clubhouse and an 8-figure maintenance facility to compete with a prestigious club nearby, financed with variable rate construction debt. Rising water and labor costs in a dry region push the annual maintenance budget toward $2 million faster than projected. Membership growth is real, but slower than the pro forma assumed, and the 15-year payback horizon stretches further as dues increases meant to close the gap start pushing away exactly the members the club needs to retain. Within a decade, the club becomes a plausible acquisition target for a private equity-backed operator looking to add another property to its portfolio, the same fate that has already met thousands of once independent clubs across the country. So the next time someone describes owning a private golf course as buying into a permanent legacy, that's true for the version built with patience and discipline. But the same acreage, financed the wrong way and dressed up to win a local arms race, can end up as just another line item in someone else's private equity portfolio, changing hands every decade with a fresh coat of debt each time. The fairways were never really the product. the financing structure underneath them, and whether you're the one who controls it or the one whose dues are quietly servicing it, that's the actual asset.